Here.
Catherine?
Here.
Here.
All right. Deb Palish?
Here.
All right. I don't believe that Dan is here. Chris? Okay, obviously I'm here, and Jen, I also see you there. I do not at the moment see Rick Rogers. Oh. And as I said before, Chris Cotta is going to try and jump on a little bit later. I did also invite Police Chief Jones to join us, just talking a little bit about potential security systems at Town Farm as we get going forward, so trying to pick his brain. So with that, we are in business. Catherine, do you mind just doing a quick recap of the meeting minutes you sent from January 22nd? Just kind of run through.
Sure. Yeah, let me just find them. Hold on. All right, so it looks like we met on January 22nd at the library. Discussed a walkthrough by the Governor's Commission on Disabilities that would be taking place at the site at the end of January. At that point, the grant had already been submitted, but presentations had not yet been scheduled. Looks like we had another discussion about fundraising, doing the brick sales. Talked about doing some in-person events in the springtime, which it looks like the coronavirus has put the kibosh on. And then had a discussion about some other grant and foundation opportunities. And each person was going to kind of take the lead on researching some of that information.
Awesome, thank you. Only one note on my side for edits in this.
Yep.
I'll highlight on the screen. So the grant has been submitted and we're looking at needing $20,000 in sponsorships if approved. That's actually, we were talking about the sponsorship component of it, but contributions and sponsorships is 60,000. So total in there. So just a notification at needing 60,000 in sponsorships and contributions, which is verbatim how it reads in the grant application.
Okay, I'll make that change.
Awesome. All right. So with that change in mind, first of all, I'd like to make a note. I see Chris Romelin has joined in. If we can just note that he's here for the meeting as in attendance. And then I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the meeting minutes for January 22nd.
I'll make the motion still, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll second.
Dave makes the motion. And Jen seconds. All in favor, if you were on the call, you can raise your hand and then I'll do a roll call for others. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Dave, I heard you. And Deb?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So excellent. Thank you very much for collecting minutes. As always, I appreciate it, Catherine. I say every time I have one of these meetings that I don't have this skill set, so I'm always very grateful to Secretary.
Glad to do it.
Thank you. All right. So moving into general business, we got the grant. So that's a big piece of news number one. Yeah. Can't thank you guys enough for all the work we've done to get to this point. I think, we still have a lot to do, but at the same time, I think taking a deep breath and realizing that not every town in the state got a grant. And I will say that I heard from a number of different people in different places that they were impressed by how the application came together and what we did. And I've also heard from folks in town how impressed they are with the composition of this committee. So thank you all, really appreciate helping get to this point. And now we get to kind of shift gears into making it a reality. So in looking at the project timeline, what was submitted into the DEM, and I'll just sort of read it off, is that the development of the playground was slated to occur from June through October of 2020. The fitness park was slated to occur between October 2020 and March 2021. And then the pickleball court modification was slated to occur this year between August and September 2020. Now, I will say a couple other things just to keep in mind. I have not received the paperwork from the DEM yet to sign off officially on the grant, so we can't hit go quite yet. I do think there's a lot of things we can put into play, but I checked with the town hall and they haven't received the paperwork yet. So I assume some of that's just a delay based on everything else that's happening. Additionally to that, I have a feeling that there may be delays in some of these timelines, or there may end up needing to be an ask for an extension or even just a redistribution of timing in here based on when we actually can get out and the current guidelines around Corona. So one of the things that I'm focusing on in the next couple of weeks is what our reality is. What can we do? Because I'm sort of chomping at the bit, as I'm sure all of you are, to get going on this project, but I also can only do what we can do. So those are the current timelines. I will probably have a clearer picture in the next 2 weeks if there is any flexibility or if the state is mandating any changes. But as of right now, I can't speak to what we've got other than what I've just read off. So any questions sort of at this point or comments at this point?
Say, Stu, I wanted to ask, since I haven't been at a few of the meetings, I apologize. How have you done the actual layout of where the playground's going to go? Is there a point where you're looking at equipment, or we still have to do some design work on the grounds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So real quick synopsis on this. When we submitted the grant, we used a site survey that we had, just a sort of a topographical map, and identified within that where the different sections would be. We had not gone as far as doing a site survey, and I'll ask Dave actually to speak on that because we may have some good news in a minute. But we did receive some design suggestions from manufacturers and playground equipment distributors. So on the agenda for tonight, one of the things I wanted to talk about was setting up presentation opportunities for a few select ones to be able to kind of show what they would present in the space we have available. For this kind of environment, I think that's beneficial in two ways. One, it lets the community be a part of the process if they want and see what they think, and we can collect feedback from there. And also saves us from having to wait till later. But Josh has a lot of experience and connections with those playground manufacturers and has kind of been the go-to in that space.
Great.
So.
All right, that's good. That's good info. Yeah, because that's something, obviously, if we don't have to do a lot of, I guess, design work up there, then it's better you can go actually to start and get some bids, right?
Yeah, I think where we're at is that the general space where we need to be. So the pickleball courts are pretty straightforward. What my understanding from having spoken to Rick Rogers is that we can just resurface the courts completely. So even the ones that remain as tennis courts, people that play tennis will get the benefit. And then you just basically redistribute the lines and put posts in. And there's a specific guideline that USA Pickleball provides for that. For the fitness park, we know the area it's going to go in. We are going to have to demolish what's there and put in the equipment, and we need to figure out what the equipment is. Although our surveys to the town helped give some guidance on what people would like to see. We just go a step further. And in the playground space, we have a general theme that the town had voted upon. I think it was like nature, if I'm not mistaken. And then the second theme was farm or barn. And so the way that the renderings came back from one of the manufacturers is you'd have nature as the main part, and then a younger child area that could be more the farm part, so you could get both in one. But that part's still kind of TBD. You got a general idea.
Yeah, but it sounds like at that point, pretty soon you could start getting those presentations from the vendors and looking at them. So we're not too far off of that timeline. You might be a month or two pushed back, but not that, right?
Well, I actually don't even think we're that far off. So I think what we can start doing, we have a meeting in theory on the calendar in about 2 weeks. We could use that as an opportunity for a presentation.
That'd be great.
If we want to do it. I've got to figure out how there might be the opportunity for people to ask questions, but I can figure that out on our end. But my kind of thought is I'd like to do, and that's why it's on the agenda here, is in 2 weeks, do one presentation, maybe a week after that or 2 weeks after that, do just another presentation. May not necessarily have as much from a meeting and a discussion standpoint, but it would be an opportunity for us to present materials, because we're in May. We were talking about June as a start point.
Yeah.
Josh, I don't know if you have any particular thoughts because you've worked with these vendors before a lot.
Honestly, I think the easiest is to try to piggyback the presentation so that you do one and you limit them to 30 minutes or a short period of time, and then you do the next shortly thereafter, and not separate them so far apart. This way, everything's fresh. You can kind of compare them directly, and you're kind of condensing the time frame. Typically, when you interview vendors, it happens. You're interviewing them within a short window, so it wouldn't be stretched out over a few weeks. It would be
Makes
a
sense.
few hours in a day. So the reality is, do they need more than 30 minutes? Maybe, but we can ask questions via email or other means if they come up. And I think the bigger thing is we need to decide who we're going to bring in for the vendors to present. So
So do you guys have a
I
list
think,
now? Do you have a list of the vendors? And I was gonna say, if you do have a list, do they have a list of areas around here where they have installations? Because I know we did Bulgamarsh, we got a list of, I think we had 3 competing vendors and we checked out what their playgrounds look like, more like ones that have been in for 4 years rather than ones that were put in last year. Because rust was a concern with us, and just that would be nice because then we could actually do that while social distancing is go out and check out a couple playgrounds,
the vendors that we've already reached out to all meet those criteria. So, they all have equipment fairly locally. It's high quality equipment. It's not it's not going to rust within 4 years. None of that should be an issue or concern for the vendors that we chose.
Okay.
They all have their own quality of different lines and various quality within what they carry, I believe. So that really shouldn't be an issue. Most of them have playgrounds installed locally, some really close, others, further away. But yeah, that really should not be an issue. And I think the vendor, we may even have a list on some of the previous meeting minutes. I'd have to double check, but
Yeah, I always like to test the slides out. Test
yeah,
drive the slides.
well,
Yeah, and
I like test driving the zip lines myself, but I'm probably too big for those.
pretty high weight restrictions from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So I do know one of the things we looked at, Chris, that was a bit of a relief to us is the ability to have the vendors be on the master price agreement. So we don't have to put it out to bid. That was a huge win on our end.
Oh, that's
so
excellent.
we can,
Yeah.
we can select the 2 or 3 vendors that we want to look at. Without naming the specific one, I will say that when we went into this, we've talked a lot about the playground in Jamestown and the manufacturer for that one. So they'll probably be invited and a few others that I think Josh has been in communication with. So we will also provide to them the survey data I think we had before from the town. And there's an opportunity for us to open up to residents if they have specific questions they want us to ask sort of in mass. But I like your idea about doing it all together and having maybe one slightly longer meeting, Josh, and then go from there.
That would be great. And then what about prepping the ground? That's part of that. Would be the same thing, whatever the matting is going to be, whatever's underneath sand or rubber or whatever we're going to do.
Surface prep would come after, and that's once the playground's designed, what the base material needs to be. And where the original concept and what we presented for our grant application is both poured in place rubber and mulch. So we're gonna try to use a combination of the two.
Mhm.
But the base material and base prep is very similar. But you wouldn't start that process until after the design has been completed and you kind of know where you're going and what the extents are.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit off from that, but we at least know that, our plan is to have poured in place rubber and engineered wood fiber.
Cool. That's great. Excellent. Thanks.
So just on that particular data point, I know, Josh, you had sort of spearheaded connecting with the vendors before. Can you
Yep.
and I maybe work offline to identify who the same group was, and we'll plan on including them into our next meeting for presentations. 30 minutes sounds fair to me.
Sure.
That work?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I do want to pause here for 1 second. So Dave, you had some news as it pertained to a site survey. You want to share?
So we did find in one of the baseball, softball storage units, the drainage plans for Town Farm.
Sweet.
Unfortunately, the whole plan doesn't actually have the playground area. It's got the Daniels softball field and it kind of goes out towards the soccer field. But for some reason in our plans, the playground area is not there, but it does give us a good idea of where the drainage should be for the playground. And it also gives us a good idea where Rick Rogers may be able to look in his records to find roughly where those plans should be. I want to say the
Awesome.
date on them was 1989. So that gives us at least a good footing on where the current drainage is mostly and where Rick could look as well. So
Awesome.
And that playground is like 31 years old, so that may be right about the time
yeah,
that the playground wasn't even there when their plan was done, because that's right about like within a couple years of that.
yeah, that's correct. So I mean, the plans were 89, so you're probably spot on with that.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Dave, do you have these digitally?
I do not. They're good old fashioned blueprints. My softball director currently has them because we took them out of the nasty garage down at Town Farm that's leaking like a sieve. So we didn't destroy them. And he's going to get them to me as soon as I want them. I can stop by now and get them. But we put them in his car to get them out of there. So
Dave, if you
Yeah,
need help
let me-
digitizing those, let me know. I'm going to help.
yeah, that's fine. As soon as I get my physical hands on them, Stu, we can touch base, or Josh, we can touch base either way.
How we do it. Cool. So I think we're right at the moment, just for up to this point, have to get the paperwork for the DEM signed, get the survey that we have there and take a look at it. I think it sounds like we're still going to have to do a survey potentially for just the playground space. But this may give us a leg up. We were talking about an additional expense for doing all of Town Farm as we look ahead, and this may cut some of that expense out, which would be great. So we'll evaluate it, see where we're at, and maybe cut down. Hello, Dan. How are you? Welcome to Thunderdome.
Hi, guys.
Cool. All right.
Hey,
So we got through setting up a presentation schedule, which takes us to fundraising plan. And obviously, between our last meeting and this one, the world has kind of gone left. So fundraising is a slightly different environment, but there are some things that we do need to work on. Essentially, within the grant, there's a portion of it that we need, within the DEM grant, we do need to submit for and have indicated that a portion of it pertains to grants, so about $15,000. And then additional funding, it's $60,550 for contributions and sponsorships. And then there's an in-kind portion that relates to work done by the town and et cetera. I do think that the grants we've already been looking at, and one of the silver linings with our timelines or timelines in general being pushed back, is that some of the grants actually delayed their completion dates. So AARP, for example, has a grant that closes on May 15th that I'm working on right now to submit. There would be no funding from the town beyond what's already been committed. So financially, I don't think there's an issue. I will run it past Chris before we proceed, Chris Cotta. But I think there's a positive there. The other big areas to look at are project-based pieces, and then also sponsors and then individual donors. And so looking at that element of it, Jen, you had recommended the idea of doing a pavers project
Yep.
and had some of the info. I'm wondering if you can just kind of chime in and
Yep.
let us know what you got so far.
Sure. So the company that I had reached out to is called Polar. They're in, out of Florida. I called a couple of places that have used them. They are great recommendations. The shipping is included in the price, and they'll ship it as a bulk. So we'll have a window of when we can sell, and they'll ship it all to us. I'm just going to share the screen. Let's see here. For some, it's not letting me do this. Well, I'll send it to
Yeah,
everyone for some reason.
You can try it now. I just made you the host,
Okay.
maybe.
Any luck?
Nope.
No, that's
No.
all right.
All right.
No. Anyway, there's three. I'll just do it this old fashioned way here. So there's a couple choices here. And I want to kind of pick Josh's brain because there's a choice between clay or concrete brick. I didn't know which would be best for our area. The difference is in the clay, there's only 2 size choices, but in the concrete, there's 3, which I liked better to give 3 different price points. Because I'd like to, open it to anyone, whether it's $75 minimum or they want to do $500. But I didn't know which material would be best for the space. And how it goes is this, the small, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Material wise, it's comes down to a personal preference, obviously.
Okay.
Clay bricks are New England, vernacular. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. But I think the other thing is I'll shoot you an email. I may have some local contacts and vendors that do the same thing. So
Okay.
may cut down on cost and so there may be some benefits, but I'll shoot it over to you via email so you have it, and then
Okay, perfect.
just in case. So I don't know their price points, but
Okay. So the price points for these are the smaller brick, the
But
4x8
clay-
is $17.50. Go ahead. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
So
I
the
was
price
just gonna
point
say
is $17.50.
Clay or brick, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
All right,
so
hold
they're
on.
all the same price.
Same price for both. So Jen, go ahead.
Okay. The small starts at $17.50, then we set our own price point for what we want our profit to be. So we as a committee can choose what our 3 price points want to be of what our profit will be. And then we just need to go from there as far as what we want to be set out for companies, for businesses. You can also, they can even do like a larger, so if a company wanted to do $1,000, they could buy several bricks and they'll scan their logo into it and put the company name on the logo. So this particular company can scan any clip art, any logo into the brick. So an
Cool.
example of, so they give you a couple of potential profitabilities, and it's, so if we sold 100 bricks of the 4x8s, it's $10,000 profit if we charge $100 a brick.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah,
can do
and then it goes all the way up to if we sell 50 of the large bricks, the 12x12 at $7.50 each, it's a $37,000 profit.
Yeah. That would do
They
a
also
pretty good
have-
number on what we have to include. Yeah.
Yep. They have some interesting designs too. If you can even, create these into, which I hadn't even thought outside the box of this, you could create the bricks into a bench or a seating area. So it doesn't have to just be an actual sidewalk. You can kind of get a little creative with how you want to arrange the bricks.
Josh, did you have a comment? Anything else that was missing in there? Sorry, we just had some lag.
No. I think no matter what you choose, material wise, the base prep and everything else, whether it's brick or concrete, is gonna be very similar. We're gonna need walkways, accessible walkways.
Mhm.
So I suspect the most logical use will be for them to be an access way. That's my guess.
Yeah.
And then designing them into other things, planting beds or stuff like that, will just likely add cost or design logistics, I guess, let's say.
Okay. So it sounds like we've got some work to do on that just to figure out. I'm wondering if by the time we have our next meeting, if we can have sort of a plan put together so we can launch that. So I think it's about 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in there. Because I'd love to get that. We do have a website. If you haven't seen it, recreatetownfarm.org. And so it is a good platform for us to use for updates, news, sharing what the plan is, all this stuff. And also, as we go forward, I'm hoping to simulcast these meetings on that page as well, in addition to Tiverton video, so that people can just go to that if they want. We'll keep a record of them. But kind of a good log of what we've done, following in the footsteps of the skate park and Grinnell's. So yes, Jen. Jen, go ahead. I think you're on mute right now.
Unmute,
Yes, she goes.
okay. Can you check with Chris to see if it's possible, just so I can put it into the plan? So people can purchase the bricks online, but if they don't want to do that option, can they drop their checks and payment off in the slot at town hall, and then I can just process them? I just want to be able to give people an option that don't want to do the online payment.
Sure. I can check with Denise and find out how they're accepting payments. Otherwise, I don't see a reason why
Okay.
not. We'll just have to make sure the process is pretty standard.
Right, exactly.
What checks made out to it? They made out to the town of Tiverton, they made out to the Tiverton Town Farm Renovation Committee.
My understanding right now, and I'll get clarity, is I think they're made out to the town of Tiverton with a note that it's restricted to this particular project. But I'll confirm that with Denise.
Got it.
We haven't put any information about fundraising on that site yet, partially just because I want to have all the pieces together. And we can do that pretty quickly. She and I have been talking about trying to get PayPal going. We've been encountering some issues with
That
them
would
from
be
a
great.
customer standpoint, but yeah.
PayPal would be good. I'm thinking if we had a marketing piece too, that could be emailed out to people. I know a number of business owners around here. That'd probably be the fastest way to get it out to people. An email thing. And I know a lot of people would actually put something up in their shops. And a number of people have businesses and restaurants and whatnot that actually post it in their restaurants if we had something that people could either take or that's just a visible thing. So that'd be kind of good to get that going. Knowing the
I don't
PayPal,
mind
knowing
doing
how the
that.
checks get written, we can create a marketing piece.
Yeah, well, Chris, if you're talking about
Yeah,
just,
I have a
something
preliminary
just in
marketing
general,
toolkit.
Good.
Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, just saying if there's any need to write something, kind of in general that would blast out for overall help, then I don't mind writing that up. But if it's something different, I just catch that, Chris. If you like just like a general ask for support, a letter of some sort, I can help with that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was thinking we do a marketing piece that can be emailed or printed, and it basically has images of what we're going to do, images of the pickleball, the adult fitness area, and then the playground, both playgrounds, for the seniors, the over 50 crowd, and then the other crowd that has kids, as well as pretty much everybody in between. But I think having that marketing piece would be pretty cool. And the brick part could be on that too. So, you could have how to donate, you can buy a brick, you can send a check, you can do PayPal, and then that way you get everybody, the people who just want to do PayPal, the old fashioned, people want to write a check, and then a lot of people like the bricks. And probably note where in the playground the bricks are going to be. Be nice to kind of know, because a lot of times people do these fundraisers. We did one, and we
Visual.
weren't sure we were going to put it until we had all the bricks. And we had to find a place for it at Balgamore, which did, but it was not the best place.
Yep.
Yeah. The library did one of these too. So I think what makes sense is between now and the next meeting, I've got some template stuff from when I did the website. I can put together a little bit, and maybe Dan, you and I can work on the copy to get in there,
Yeah.
and we'll pull it together. We'll take a look at it. And if we feel like it's good, we can start pushing it out. I'm really hoping to have the PayPal piece done before that, and some clarity from Denise. And then obviously we're gonna have to write letters to recognize everybody that contributes. We're also gonna have to do a sign, which could be, depending on the level of contribution, another area to put out there. So very cool. In the last meeting, I had promised to circulate a Excel sheet that has information about grants and donors, and I think I put it together but never sent it. So what I'd like to do, and Chris, I could specifically use your help with this because you mentioned it before, if we know who the people we might be able to talk to or we should be reaching out to as potential donors, I'd love to start filling that in for us as a guide to know what we're doing. And if you can help kick off, I think you mentioned a couple of people that we should be asking. It's also a really easy way for me to know who to write
Absolutely,
letters
yeah.
to afterwards if they do contribute. So.
Yeah, that way we don't duplicate efforts and don't hit the same people twice or 3 times, For sure.
All right. So kind of had put fundraising and communications together in there. There are a lot of moving parts in here. I think for me, the one thing I keep trying to come back to is, when do we hit go? When do we start demolishing things? And I don't know what the answer to that is. I wish Rick was on the call to be able to help a little bit with that, but I think it sounds like we've got to get the survey done first. We've got to figure out exactly what we're doing for the brick donations, and making sure that the donations portal is all set up. And hopefully it all comes together in about 2 weeks, and then we hit go. So from a timeline standpoint, yeah, Josh, go ahead.
I'm not certain that if we can coordinate with Rick, it may make sense to get rid of the remainder of the playground equipment now before survey. This way, our survey is only surveying blank slate, essentially. They're giving us grades and that's it. We don't have any obstacles. We don't have equipment in there. It may ultimately keep the cost for the survey lower. So if DPW is looking for something to do and they want to take the equipment down, if it's coming out anyway, I can't see a reason why it would hurt. It's just an option to consider. If the plan is to do the main playground first, maybe we clear that first, and that's not in the so the equipment's not in the survey, and it's essentially a blank slate.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Josh. Clear the slate right now, especially because Little League right now is on hold till at least the fall. So even those 2 little pieces of wood that are there, they're not going to be much of a difference right now, being there or not being there. But I agree. If we clear that area, it'll also give us a bigger vision of that entire area, maybe even spreading on beyond that sand toward that grass. And they have a clean slate. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I will reach out tomorrow and see if I get a demolition on the calendar. I want to circle back to Adam, because I know that was an area he was really interested in being involved with, either from a manpower standpoint or maybe he just likes to destroy things. Either way, I'm happy to connect with him and get him involved. I can't blame him. It's kind of cathartic, I kind of like doing it too. So we'll see if we can get it on the calendar. Cool. What else? Anything else in there? All right. in looking at the ex officio list, we actually don't have any of the representatives on here. So I'll give a 3-second review that Chris has been really helpful in notifying me about what's going on with recreation. And I have basically said I'll keep him in the loop, and then he's let us run. Rick has given guidance and met with us on a couple of occasions to take a look at what's there. And I've asked Chief Jones to look at the area from a security system standpoint. As many of you saw, somebody went out and did donuts on Town Farm, and I'd really like to avoid that happening again. And I'm also really concerned that putting in brand new equipment, we want to protect it. So I've asked him to kind of give me his thoughts on what type of security system would be best for the town, in his opinion, and I will share that when he and I are able to connect on it. So those are the only 3 things I had on there. Are there any other comments, feedback? Anything else I'm missing in here, guys?
I don't have anything, Stu. I know we've had a little bit of chatting here and there offline, but I think once we get the ball rolling, it'll all come together.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's a good moment, all that work you guys did. It's going to be a good rest of the spring here into summer with this. Be really nice.
Yeah. As soon as we choose the company, I'd like to put up a board outside of Town Farm that shows what the renderings are like. I always feel like that gets the momentum going, and then we can also put some information about
Yeah.
donations and marketing. So,
Yeah.
and from a personal standpoint, the pressure I have as a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, they're going to kill me if we don't have a playground by this time next year. So we're going to get it done.
That's right. We're going to go pound the pavement.
Cool.
Jen,
Thank you, everybody. I need a
Jen.
motion to adjourn.
Jen, hold on. Jen wants you.
Oh, Jen?
I just
I
had a
thought
quick
you were waving.
question, sorry. No, not
No,
waving.
go ahead.
Do you want me to connect with you, or should we discuss it of what we want the price point of the bricks to be, so I can put a plan together?
To be honest, I'd love for a recommendation from you on what you think it should be. You did this at Ranger, if I remember correctly, and if you have thoughts on it. So
No, we didn't do bricks at Ranger.
based on the numbers,
We didn't do bricks at Ranger, but that's okay.
gotcha. Yeah, I totally would take a recommendation, whatever you think the right approach is, and we can
Okay.
just
Perfect.
talk about it next time. But
Okay.
all right, everybody, could I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn if everybody's good.
Okay, can
I'll
I get a
second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, just wave bye.
Take care, everybody. Be
Yeah.
safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Have a
Thanks,
good night.
guys.
Take it
care.
easy.
Bye.
Bye.